Welcome to Investor Talk on Real Estate Investor. I'm Neil Peterson. And despite economic pressure, rising living costs, and uncertainty around interest rates, property still continues to stand out as one of the most powerful long-term wealth creation tools available to South Africans. But successful property investing is about far more than simply buying a property and hoping prices rise. The reality is that experienced investors focus heavily on strategy, cash flow, location, rental demand, equity growth, and long-term scalability. They understand the numbers, manage risk carefully, and build portfolios with purpose. So what separates successful property investors from those who struggle? And what should ordinary South Africans really understand before investing in property? So joining me today is Jaco Grobelaar. He's the founder and he's the CEO of Prosperity Enterprises. And Jaco, welcome to Investor Talk.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be on the show.
Absolutely. So Jaco, let's talk about, in a world of rising uncertainty, volatile markets, and also growing financial pressure, many South Africans are questioning where they should be investing their money. Why do you still believe property remains one of the most powerful long-term wealth creation vehicles available to ordinary South Africans?
I actually think, Neil, and I often say this when I talk to my clients, is I don't know if there have been a better time to invest in property than right now. People often see challenges. They see, like you say, uncertainty, volatile markets, financial pressure, and they hold on to their money and they don't invest. And that's actually the perfect time to invest. That is what made Warren Buffett one of the most successful investors in the world, is the fact that he was willing to invest in good assets at times when nobody else were willing to invest in those assets. And let's talk about property. I mean, property is a basic human need. You know, we are sitting with over 60 million people in South Africa, and each and every one of those people need a roof over their head. That's not going to change. And all trends show that the population in South Africa and Africa will continue to grow, which means that demand for property is just going to continue. That's irrespective of what the government does. That's irrespective of whether the economy grows. That's irrespective of any of these uncertainties that we are facing, whether there are wars or not. People are going to need accommodation. And that is, for me, one of the perfect reasons why I am investing in property and why I am aggressively expanding my property portfolio, especially in a time of uncertainty like this.
Okay, so I mean, one of the biggest mistakes inexperienced investors make is buying emotionally instead of financially.
That's
So
right.
when you assess a property investment opportunity, what numbers should investors focus on before buying a property?
It's so right what you are saying, Neil, is everything is about the numbers. The numbers need to make sense. You want to look at this property and from a returns perspective, you want to see if this property is going to give you a good return. Now, what is the return on a property? You've got two returns that a property generates. On the one side, you've got your rental yield. That is the cash flow that property generates on a monthly basis for you. So you want to see how much rent you are collecting from that property. And on the other side, you are sitting with capital appreciation. You want to make sure that the properties that you acquire grow in value. So those are your two returns. Now, those two returns combined gives you your total return on the property. Before speaking about leverage, we can still talk about that as well. But that's in effect your, let's call it your unleveraged return. It's your capital appreciation and your net rental yield. So you want to make sure that you buy a property that generates good rental income. I'm not too confident investing for capital appreciation, although in the long run, we're probably going to see good capital growth on property. If we just look at the rising costs of construction and of labor and all the input costs of property, property prices has to go up. It cannot stay as low as it has in the country. And I maybe exclude the Western Cape from this, but over the rest of the country, over the last 10 years, we've barely seen any capital appreciation. That cannot go on. It's impossible because input costs are going up. So capital appreciation will be there, but don't do your sums on capital appreciation because we don't know what capital appreciation is going to do. So make sure that your property generates good rental income. And I think, Neil, that is where a lot of people, a lot of professional investors are putting their focus. They are asking themselves, what can we do to generate more rental income out of the property?
So, what expenses do you think investors often underestimate?
I think one expense that a lot of investors underestimate is in sectional title properties levies. If you invest in sectional title properties, that one figure makes or breaks your investment. If you spend too much on levies, that investment is not going to make sense. So levies is a very, very important. That can be up to 33% of your rental income that you are paying just on levies. So levies is a very, very important number to look at. Obviously, you've got rates and taxes that you need to be aware of. And I think the most important one, Neil, is you need to be aware that interest rates can change, like we've just seen. And if interest rates increase, that means your interest expense, which is a component of your monthly bond payment, goes up. And if that goes up, that's less cash flow and less return for you. So you need to be very, very vigilant with regards to interest rates to make sure that your numbers make sense, even if interest rates go up a couple of percentage points.
Right. So, Jaco, do you still believe a property with a shortfall is still a good investment?
I think it can be. I think it can be. Although I would always, first prize would always be for me to get a property that generates positive cash flow. Every single property that I acquire today has positive cash flow from day one. Now, if you, for example, buy a property in the Western Cape and you buy it at a good price and you get your rental in and you collect your rental, you're not going to break even on that property. You're definitely going to have a shortfall, but that doesn't make it a bad investment. The capital appreciation could still be very, very good on that property. In Gauteng, on the other hand, we haven't seen capital appreciation for a long time. So, or much, let me rather say much capital appreciation. So you could be buying a property, you could be having a shortfall, and you could have very little capital appreciation. Now, I am very confident that capital appreciation will increase in Gauteng and that we will see capital appreciation again, based on what I said earlier of input costs increasing and prices not increasing. But that being said, I'm not going to bargain on that. I'm not going to invest on that being a fact. That is the fifth quarter for me. That is an extra bonus. So you need to be very careful to invest in property with negative cash flow. And because you're depending on capital appreciation. That's the only way where you can still make money out of this property if your cash flow is negative on the property.
Okay, so let's turn a little bit to location. I mean, it's a major factor that continues to drive, long-term property performance. So they say the old saying, location matters enormously in property investing. What do you think separates an average location from a true long-term growth node?
I think, Neil, everybody speaks about location, but they don't know what makes a certain property being in a good location. Sometimes our idea of what a good location is wrong. I want to say above location is price. If you pay the right price, a property could be a great investment. If you pay the wrong price, even if the property is in an excellent location, it could be a terrible investment. So the numbers are what matters, but things that I see, I've moved my strategy working or focusing much more on the working class, on people that can that every day need to move around and use public transport and so on. So most of my properties have rent of less than 5,000 Rand. So it's not the best locations, it's not the best, but it's what they can afford. It's good areas. it's the best areas where they can live, that's close to public transport that they can use and that they can afford to get to work every single day. So location is sometimes not how luxurious the suburb is. Often it is how much access have you got to public transport. That has been the single biggest determining factor on my specific properties, and that's not for everyone. That's an applicable or a specific strategy. Is access to public transport is the most important thing. That how far they need to walk to get to the taxi to take a taxi to work is the single most important prerequisite or checkpoint that makes my properties rent out or not. So that is something that we've seen. Those that are close to, and obviously if you can get close to the working nodes, that's ideal because people don't want to sit 1 or 2 hours in traffic every day. So something that we've done is we've started creatively looking at ways to give affordable accommodation to people that's close to their work. And if you can do that, you're in the pound seats.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about equity growth and building a portfolio. I mean, experienced investors don't just buy one property; they build portfolios, and they also leverage equity over time. Can you explain how equity growth works and why it becomes such a powerful wealth building tool?
Absolutely. The reason why most people don't make it in property investing is because they don't have a long-term strategy. Everybody is so obsessed with what's happening right now. What is the next 3 months going to do? What is the next year going to do? And they forget to put a strategy in place and a plan in place for the next 20 or 30 years. And that's really what I'm about. And I understand not everybody has 20 or 30 years to invest. But those of you that do, I mean, if you are 40 years old or 45 years old or 35 years old, you should be thinking 20, 30 years. And you should think of your plan that you are going to execute over the next couple of decades. So I think that is, most people are not willing to do that. And that's why most people do not succeed in property. Now, if you are willing to do that and you are willing to, one property at a time, build your property portfolio, you could build a substantial property portfolio. At the investor evenings, I always tell people, how many people do you know that own 30 properties? And very few people can say they know somebody that owns 30 properties. And then I break it down and I tell them over 30 years how easy it is to build a property portfolio of 30 properties. You just have to simply buy one small property every year for 30 years. That's it. Just one small property. Most people, even if you don't have a massive salary, if you invest correctly and if you use leverage, we're going to talk about that now, and if you use the equity in the property, what you asked me about now, you can buy one property a year, and over 30 years, you can have 30 properties, but most people give up long before they get to that. So to answer your question, Neil, is equity is the thing that we use to grow our property portfolios. I buy a property, and the first thing that I do is I make sure I buy that property below market value. That is why I said price, price, price. If I buy the property below market value, it gives me the opportunity to refinance that property. Now, refinancing that property means I go back to the bank. I tell the bank, listen, bank, I bought a property that's worth R1 million, but I only paid 800,000 Rand for this property. Borrow me another 200,000 Rand on this property. The banks would look at the property to see if there's collateral, if the property is actually worth R1 million. They will look at your affordability and the rental income to see if there's affordability. And then based on that, they would lend you another 200,000 Rand. Now, that 200,000 Rand is obviously going to increase your monthly bond payment. So you need to have good rental income to cover the bond. But now you are sitting with 200,000 Rand, and that 200,000 Rand is going to buy your next property. I'm not continuously taking out my own money to buy property. I'm using the properties that I already have to buy the next properties for me. And that is where we leverage equity over time, is we use the equity in the properties to make capital available to buy the next properties. And the most important thing that I can say, and we're going to talk a lot about that today, Neil, is to pace yourself. This is not a 100-meter sprint. This is a marathon. This is a Comrades marathon you are running. And it's not about how much you can do today. It's about how much you or can do consistently over the next couple of decades.
Wonderful. Nicely said. So at the same time, I mean, we look at cash flow and rental demand, which remain critical to long-term investment sustainability. I mean, a property can look great on paper, but if rental demand is weak, it quickly becomes a financial burden. So how important is rental demand when choosing an investment property?
It's everything, Neil. It's that is your demand. That is your client. So you want to make sure that the product or the service that you are offering actually there's a client that wants to buy that or wants to pay for that. So you need to make sure that you can that you have properties where there's demand and where there's increase of demand. So and then that is where I often ask the question, and I don't. I'm tempted to say you need to invest in a certain class or a certain price range of property. But something that I've learned with the thousands of clients that we have is there's people on all sides with very, very good strategies. I've got people in low cost housing that are doing phenomenally well. And then I've got people that are investing in luxury estates. I'm talking about super luxury estates. They buy properties, they furnish them beautifully, and they rent them out as corporate rentals to the expats that live in these fancy estates. So there's always niches in every price range where there's demand, and it's important for you to read that demand. One thing that I do want to say is I did the exercise a couple of years ago to look at the LSM brackets in South Africa. And I used to have properties, and this is my strategy. I'm not saying that this is the only strategy that there is, but I used to rent out properties for 7,000, 8,000 Rand. That was the market that I was in. 2-bedroom townhouses, entry level, 7,000 to 8,000 Rand. Now, if you pay rent of 7,000 to 8,000 Rand, you need to earn about 21,000 Rand a month, give or take. Let's say between 20 and 25,000 Rand. So as a household, and or as a single person, you need to earn 20 to 25,000 Rand a month. Then I did the exercise to go and look at how many people in South Africa actually are in those LSM brackets that afford that. And I realized that about 20% of South Africans can actually afford my rent. And I realized that only 20% of people can rent those properties from me. And I started asking myself, but what about the other 80%? Where are they living and what are they renting? And then I started changing my strategy to focus on rentals below 5,000 Rand, because that's where the bigger bulk of the LSM market is, or where the people are. People that earn 15,000 Rand a month, or a household that earns 15,000 Rand a month rather than 25,000 Rand a month. And suddenly there was a much bigger percentage of people that I could cater for. So that was one thing that I looked at, and where I see tremendous demand is people starting out. I mean, we're sitting with a very young population in South Africa as well. So there's a lot of young people starting out that's looking for affordable accommodation. That being said, you can still operate in any of the other price brackets and have a phenomenal investment, but you're going to have to find that niche where there is demand and where people actually want to live. And I think security is a very big aspect to think of. I love complexes for that reason. I love estates for that reason, because people are after safety. They want them and their families to be safe. So I see a lot of opportunity in that space. And yes, and I think we're going to have some interesting conversations about where people are moving around to in South Africa. And I might give a little bit of a controversial answer for you on that as well.
Okay, well, maybe just share that. Share that with us.
There's a lot of focus. There's a lot of focus currently on people moving from Gauteng to the Western Cape, and what that has resulted in is Western Cape properties rising rapidly in value, proper appreciation, whereas in Gauteng, properties being flat. However, I actually took that Lightstone data and I looked at the population of Johannesburg and the number of families that moved to the Western Cape. And it is like a point-something percentage point. It is actually a very small number of people that are moving from Gauteng to the Western Cape, if you look at it from a percentage of the I mean, most people can't afford to move to the Western Cape. It's your higher LSM. Once again, be aware of the LSM brackets. It's your higher LSM brackets, people that are established in their career, people that can afford to move, and a lot of people that can afford to work remotely, which is also only certain. People. So I think there is still very strong demand in Gauteng, but the market is not seeing it. And that has given me an opportunity to pick up property at dirt cheap prices because everybody wants to invest in the Western Cape now. What am I doing? I'm a contrarian investor. I'm swimming up the stream and I'm saying, well, if everybody's buying in Western Cape, I'm going to buy in Gauteng. And this is my hypothesis. I might be wrong. I'm not going to be as arrogant to say that, what I'm doing is right. But I think there's an opportunity in that. Is I'm buying properties at very, 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 very affordable prices because there's not a lot of focus on Gauteng at this moment from an investment perspective. Everybody's channeling their money to the Western Cape. We're also sitting. Are we allowed to get political? I'll speak in broad terms. But I think the local election in November in Gauteng is going to be a very, very interesting election. There is no one party that is guaranteed to win. There is very, very stiff competition. So things could change drastically for Johannesburg after the next local elections as well. So there's a good chance that another party could be in power after the next local elections in Johannesburg. And that could change a lot because a lot of the negative sentiment in Johannesburg is political.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And so let's just talk a little bit about, mistakes that property investors make. I mean, you've worked with many investors over the years and seen both successes and you've seen failures. What are the biggest mistakes people make when entering the property investment market?
I think, Neil, people are in a hurry to buy their first property. And they buy their first property before educating themselves and before setting a plan in place of what the next couple of decades are going to look like. So when somebody asks me, what should I do first? I always ask them, how many books have you read on property? I mean, there are such phenomenal books, local and international content that you can read on property investment in South Africa. So get a hold of some of those books and educate yourself. Learn as much as you can. And then also make sure that your structures are in place. Don't build a property portfolio in your own name. It's going to cost you a lot of money to fix it later on. So get your structure in place. It's not that expensive, and buy your properties in a company with the shares in a trust so that what you start building now, you can continue building for decades to come. And then, Neil, I think, especially with properties, have a long-term perspective. Don't think in terms of months or years. Think in terms of decades. Those are the people that really build success. Those that can wait it out and that is patient enough to follow a strategy over a number of decades rather than just looking at what's going to happen the next month. And then one last thing that I want to say is probably the biggest mistake that people make is they end up paying too much for a property. I'm very patient when I'm buying property. I submit offers all the time that gets rejected. I've grown used to rejection, Neil. So that's something that's part of investing in property. Is I make offers and it gets rejected. But when an offer gets accepted, I know it's at a good price and it's below market value, and there's equity in the property for me to refinance to use for my next investment property. So that's a very, very important lesson to learn, is don't be so much in a hurry that you end up paying too much for the property.
Excellent. So just a scenario here, Jaco. I mean, if you had to lose everything and you had to start building wealth through property from scratch again in today's market, what exact strategy would you follow first and why?
I've made so many mistakes, Neil, and I've made massive mistakes. And sometimes we all wish we could start over and do it again. And if I could start over, I would have had so much experience now, and there's so many things that I would have been able to do differently. But I think the thing that I'm going to say might surprise a lot of people. I would have started slower and scaled faster. And I think that is where most people, they don't understand that hockey stick curve of a graph, um, of starting slow from a strong base to a strong base, little by little building your property portfolio, but then picking up speed once the model works and once the niche that I've positioned myself in works, and then start scaling massively. So if I could start over today, I would have bought less properties. I would have leveraged less. So in other words, I would have had more equity in my properties. I wouldn't have refinanced so much and buy so many properties. And I would have first made sure my cash flow is healthy and positive. And then I would scale once that is in place. And the mistake I made was I was buying properties with negative cash flow and I was scaling that. And I was actually scaling a problem that got me into very big trouble. So I think it's very, very important to build something strong before you scale it.
Wonderful. Jaco, thank you very much for joining us today. I think what's become very clear to the audience is that successful property investing is not just about speculation or luck. It's about education, it's discipline, understanding the numbers, and taking a long-term strategic approach. And the investors who continue building wealth are usually those who understand cash flow, location, rental demand, and the importance of making informed decisions rather than the emotional ones that Jaco has shared with us. So, first of all, I'd just like to say to you, Jaco, thanks again for sharing your insights and practical advice with us today. And anybody who would like to reach out to Jaco, I encourage you to do that. So once again, thank you, Jaco, and to our viewers and listeners, thank you for watching. I'm Neil Peterson of Real Estate Investor. Until next time, thank you.